Well, it's surprising talking about where you want to go, physically. It really does say a lot about what you want. Because, you think about where you want to go, you really start to think about why you want to go there, and then you get into where you want to be in life. So, it kind of gives you a little idea of where you want to be, where you want to go, and so getting to talk through that is really, interesting.
I wish that I could travel more. I'm sick of this town. Whichever town it happens to be.
The original idea for Existentia sort of evolved out of a call for submissions from Northern Spark, the arts festival that happens one night a year in the Twin Cities.
Northern Spark is an overnight art festival that takes place on the second Saturday of June in the Twin Cities. And so we start at dusk and go until dawn. And for those 8 hours and 25 minutes, roughly, we experience a whole host of art projects.
This year, they were focusing specifically on the Union Depot in downtown St. Paul. Now, the Union Depot is a train station that was built, I think, back in the 1920s. Well, in recent years, with the advent of light rail systems and Amtrak's sort of revitalization, they decided to renovate this beautiful building and make it once again a transportation hub.
What we realized as we were gearing up to organize that year of the festival is that we really had a golden kind of moment, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to site the festival here, because this building is soon to become a fully operating train station. Right now there's no train service here, there's only bus. The light rail was not yet running. So a lot of the transportation functions that this building was renovated to house aren't happening yet.
Using somehow this idea of transportation, in this day and age we're blessed with the opportunity to travel almost anywhere in the world we would like to go. So it's no longer just a question of where you need to go, where people in the past, had to escape some kind of horror or war and they became refugees. They needed to leave, or they needed to leave because of hunger or starvation or of a famine, or they needed to leave for economic reasons to find a better life, to find a job. And you could pretty much go anywhere that you could afford to go. So it really becomes something of a philosophic question. So I thought of the idea of establishing a philosophical travel agency.
Existentia offices are open for travel consultation.
There we go. Oh yeah, we need you to fill out a simple 10-question questionnaire. All right. This where do you want to go would become bigger than just a vacation or a short trip, but would really come to represent a life journey. Where do you want to go with your life?
When we were reviewing proposals for the open call, I was really excited about the Existentia proposal because it took such careful advantage of the space.
Using the environment of a train depot to come up with an idea that would focus specifically on that environment. So, what's I guess referred to as site-specific performance. So instead of with traditional theater or performance art where you somehow build a set and you establish a fictional reality, you're dealing with an actual place, an actual physical environment, and you build a performance tailored to that specific environment where you take advantage of what's really there.
The way that the project took the idea of travel, which was the broad theme for the festival, and worked it into an interactive, theatrical, humorous experience, seemed to me to bring together all of these elements of Northern Spark that we want projects to embody.
I like the idea of sort of having fun with the contemporary branding and marketing strategies of creating words that don't really mean anything and then being able to attach your own meaning to it. So we have companies like Essentia and Alina and Tria, and those names don't really mean anything, but you can basically just make it whatever you want. So I thought the name Existentia would be a lot of fun because, of course, it sounds a lot like existential, which has all sorts of ramifications when we're talking about travel and ultimate destinations. And then I thought about the idea of a trip not being just a vacation or something that was set for a short period of time, but a longer journey. So the idea of a lifelong journey.
When I was 8 years old, my mom, who was a single mother, took me and my sister on a trip through London, Paris, and Munich, where we had family. And it was the first time I had ever left the house, and I was terrified. And after that, I couldn't stop Shake the Wanderlust.
So that we would create a consultation service that would help people walking in thinking that they were going to find out where it was they wanted to go for their vacation, and it would really sort of morph into a broader philosophical examination of where they wanted to go with their life.
I honestly have no idea what I was going to expect. All I knew about it was that it was a performance art piece that was about a travel agency.
I was expecting it to be, I don't know, more off the wall than it was.
This experience was amazing. It's a very well put on production. The detail, the concept, everything was just really, really well done, really, really amazing. Just a fun experience.
We would set up this environment as an office, a contemporary office environment, where we would have a registration process, and we would have individual consultations with our different travel advisors. And we poked around with that idea, and I wanted to set it up in a way that it could be done anywhere in Union Depot. And once we developed a relationship with Northern Spark, they suggested that we use the Amtrak ticketing area, which turned out to be a perfect fit because it was 2 side-by-side rooms. The first one had a ticket counter just like you would see at any train station or airport. And then the second room was a big open room with a luggage claim area around a luggage carousel. And it was there that we set up our travel consults with individual consultants side by side. So basically, we opened it up to anybody and everybody who was attending Northern Spark, and as they came in, they would register at the front desk, and we would hand them a 10-question questionnaire, which would sort of give us some idea of who they were, where they were coming from, and it would serve as a basis for our travel consultant to begin the consultation process.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and about your interest in travel.
Sure. I love traveling. I'm kind of like an actor, singer.
There's the desk, and you go and you fill out a form, and you take the scan thing, and then you actually sit down and talk to like a travel agent. I wasn't expecting that, honestly. I have no idea.
What was your favorite restaurant?
It was actually a little Greek place.
Okay.
Not at all like French.
In the Existentia project, I served as a consultant. So I met with clients to give them a philosophical 10-minute travel consultation.
So I wouldn't need a cell phone for that.
We chose the performers based not on their traditional acting skills or performance abilities, but rather their ability to engage in a direct one-to-one conversation, to have genuine conversations with people, and to ultimately be really, really good listeners.
My role tonight was to be a consultant and to, I suppose, not guide, but to have people consider what it is that they get from traveling.
And traveling with someone, you can compare what they see with what you see, or you may like follow their interest, and they will follow your interest.
And is there some serendipity that comes out of that?
Yes, there is. Yes.
So I began just, going through a list of my friends, basically who I thought would be up for the project, who would be willing to stay up all night, and to have conversations with total strangers in the middle of the night. So I approached them, some of whom turned me down right away because they didn't want to stay up all night. But most of the people I talked to were really enthusiastic about the idea and thought it would be interesting.
My expectations said it would be a really fun, interactive experience.
Kathy?
Yeah, Kathy. All right. I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you too. Go ahead, right this way.
Honestly, I had no idea what to really expect. I thought about, from the time that I signed on up until this past week, really prepping for tonight, I should really try and prepare. I should try and get it together a little bit and maybe figure out what's happening. But I realized it's just going to be having honest conversations with people, which there's really no prep for.
And I did have some auditions, just open auditions for performers who had some kind of background in improvisational theater. So a couple of the performers came from those open auditions, but the majority were people who I either knew well or had worked with on theater projects in the past.
So nice to see you. My gosh, Roger. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. Oh my God. Circle in.
And then there were a few other roles beyond the consultants that I had specific ideas for.
Are you ready?
Jasmine.
Victor Lopez as the biomedic technician. For that role, I was looking for somebody who basically could handle the crowds and not be rattled by an environment that at times proved to be pretty stressful.
I'm the biometric technologist. I've been doing hand scans. A biometric hand scan, which then prints a map of the hand that the consults use.
I have got this personalized map for you to take with you with just some notes and some things to think about.
Hi, how's your night so far? All right, good. You can put your left hand in the circle for me so I can get your scan going. Nice.
At parts, I was part office manager along with the, just the scanning the hands. I was kind of expediting it, you take this one, this person's goes here. We have this much of a wait, so we have to, tell people to wait until we get through a bunch of them.
Thank you, sir. It's corporate synergy right there, complying with new demands and moving forward.
We'd love to have you check it out and have a free-flowing dialogue with somebody about where you really want to go. And it's not always Vegas or Florida or up north.
The role of the sort of the pitch man, the guy who was out front, I immediately thought of Paul Pruitt, who's just a wonderful PR guy, very charismatic, and has no trouble talking to total strangers. So he was going to kind of work the front of the house.
Roger had asked me to kind of be the barker, the guy to get people to come in, but frankly, with the traffic that we've had, it's been no difficulty getting people to come in. There's actually been a steady flow of folks. The consultants have been backed up even, so I've had a chance to kind of schmooze people out front in advance of their coming in and taking part of Existentia.
For us, the most challenging aspect of the project was during the actual performance itself, the sheer amount of audience, just the massive number of people who literally came gushing through the doors as soon as the festival began.
It got a little busy, and having that many conversations with that many people and keeping it on a really real level for them was kind of difficult, but it also was good because it kept our energy level up.
I would expected there would be gaps in time between consults with one person and consults with the next person. And then comparing those expectations with what my experience actually was, I did end up consulting with people about their travel experiences and their travel plans. It became much more sort of psychological and metaphorical and in some cases spiritual than I had anticipated.
One woman had been a flight attendant for 27 years and still is, and she talked about how when she first would travel through being a flight attendant, she just had fun going to places because she could go wherever she wanted. But over the course of the years being a flight attendant, she started looking at traveling as not only a real cultural experience, but kind of an introspective learning experience on a search of what is her life about. And it was really fascinating hearing her. She talked for quite a while about that process, that years-long process of how it changed for her. And it was a really interesting thing for her. And she described the whole thing. She described it all.
The audience's response or reaction was initially one of hesitation or possibly fear. They seemed really cautious for the most part, as if they were somehow going to get tricked into something they didn't really want to do.
So go on mind trips. If you want to view it that way, that might be one way to put it. But we talked to you about your travel preferences and then...
Okay, so you are a traveler.
Philosophically.
Do you help me book an airline ticket?
Not that directly, no. We're more interested in helping you figure out where it is you really want to go.
Okay.
What you want that experience.
So we often were confronted with the question, is this for real? And we would try to answer that by not breaking the illusion of theater, by saying something like, it's real to me, or is it real to you? It's as real as you want to be, that kind of thing, and just play around with it a little bit.
Well, we had a couple of people that were really very loquacious, very into the experience. It kind of took it to a level I wouldn't have expected. One lady mentioned that she had been traveling a lot throughout the world, and she was hell-bent on thinking that she was going to be able to actually book plane tickets through us. I don't think she left completely certain that we in fact were not a travel agency.
Like originally I thought it was an info booth for something to do with Northern Spark, but then I approached it and I realized that I was in a different world, a different experience, and I realized it was an exhibition. And so when we stepped up, we asked the man in the counter what it was, and he explained it a little bit, and I was just very, very excited to go on a journey, a new adventure with this piece, I guess you'd call it.
Once people got that we were there to have fun with it and that we were serious at the same time, they just jumped in wholeheartedly. For the most part, we had very little resistance. There were a few people who were on the edge of being too intoxicated, but for the most part it was really, really very well received, and I think audience members were into it or were willing to go with it to a higher degree than I would have predicted.
When I did the kind of consultation going on, I was surprised at how, I guess, personal it got and how much I was talking more about myself and life journey than actually a journey, and it's probably just due to my answers that I put down.
Participation or interactivity is a core value of the Northern Spark Festival, and one of the things that we've heard consistently from our audience surveys that we run each year of the festival is an appreciation for an arts experience that isn't one where you're just viewing. You're not walking down the aisle and looking at all of these vendors. No one's selling you anything. They're in fact inviting you in to make a project with them. And so we encourage our artists, and the ones that we commission and the ones that our partnering organizations work with, to create some way for an audience to have a hand in what's happening.
In terms of the actual takeaway, you know, what the audience member would walk away with, I think for many of them it was a profound experience.
They ask you 4 different things you can pick from: a toothbrush, a cell phone, 2 other things, and I had a hard time picking between my toothbrush and my cell phone, and I chose the toothbrush for my packing trip, which was interesting to learn about myself.
They really were challenged to think about themselves and their lives in ways that they maybe hadn't been in a long time, if ever. So in that way, it was really, really valuable.
There was one kid who wanted to travel because he was influenced by poetry and literature. Those were his main reasons for traveling. He wanted to learn French because his favorite French author, Albert Camus, is French. And just all these little things. And he was really into spoken word. And he just had these very different, open-minded ideas about travel and very different influences regarding his goals for traveling.
The performer training or rehearsals that were required for this piece were unique in that we were basically preparing for the unknown.
Yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna be overnight in a depot, and it's gonna be a travel agency. Is really the first thing I heard, and I was like, okay, so we're gonna be bellhops, and we're just gonna be pretend carrying luggage around all night, or what's the deal?
Well, you know, Roger Nieboer, I've followed him for years, and I've always known him to be a high concept guy, and I've yet to do anything with him that wasn't interesting and more than I expected.
He gave the idea just as a performance piece, and I just kind of took it as an experiment. I thought that whatever came along, that's what I would do. So I thought it would be fun.
We had a set script in the sense that we had the 10-question questionnaire that we would ask each participant to fill out before they were involved in the consultation. So it's kind of serious, it's kind of funny, but yet it will cause them to think, and in just a really short questionnaire, it'll give you guys as consultants a pretty good idea of what these individual people are about, where they're coming from.
The filling out the form itself was enough of an interesting experience because the very first question is, where's the one place you want to be right now? And it made me think, what is the place I want to be right now? And I honestly didn't know. Like, I eventually ended up writing down somewhere exciting and new because I couldn't think of a specific place.
But beyond that, it was basically their ability to improvise and work on their feet. You could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? And they put Morocco. You might want to just write on here, Morocco, question mark. So kind of use this to take notes of your conversation.
I think performance art borrows from the traditions of theater in that you have actors, but they may or may not be trained. They may or may not trying to create an experience that is one of entertainment. I think performance art often acts as an interruption to what you are normally expecting, an experience you might be expecting to have. For instance, you walk up to a ticket counter of what you think you're going to buy a train ticket, and you are instead offered an opportunity to explore your inner life.
We sit down with the travel agent, and I get to talk. I love traveling, so it was pretty much me talking about how much I love traveling and how traveling affects me.
I just like walking around and seeing cool things, like seeing cool architecture, something that's really cool, culture, just culture in general, seeing what other cultures are like.
It was really cool, and the person I talked to was great at listening and getting me to say things about my experience traveling and how it affects me and how it affects me as a person.
Everybody that came in wanted to talk. Everybody wanted to talk about, even if it was just their experiences in traveling and nothing more than seeing something that they liked. That was great, but a lot of people actually got a lot from their travels and talked about it.
Like a lot of people like buying souvenirs and stuff. Like, and I'm not really like, why do you need to take something from a place? It should be about, you know, what you glean from the experience of going there.
Right. So what I used for them was a training similar that I had been through for job coaching. And the whole idea with the type of job coaching I was trained in is that instead of answering someone's questions, instead of trying to solve a problem for them, you guide the person to a place where they can begin to tap into their own resources and begin to solve their own problems by gaining the confidence and courage to go forward.
So I would just give them kind of a little snippet of knowledge in terms of how to pay for a plane ticket or, you know, get to where they want to go. But a lot of times it was kind of obvious, so I just made it obvious for them.
And I thought it would be interesting to, again, sort of play with the ideas that are out there in contemporary culture about consulting services and job coaches and life coaches, and kind of play around with that idea, and that we would be basically transportation coaches.
I'm glad the guy who gave me my consultation was somebody I didn't know, and he was very helpful. He wasn't like a mystic, which is kind of what I was expecting. He wasn't like a shaman or anything. He was just a guy.
The only place I've ever been that I really hated was Utah.
What about Utah?
Biggest
Did you hate?
low light. Well, it didn't have anything to do with the actual, like the state. It was my fault. I was in a bad state of mind when I went there.
Okay. We were in some ways parodying the idea of job coaching while at the same time providing worthwhile consultations. You ask someone a question, they give an answer, and then you basically throw that back at them, paraphrase it, or, you know, massage it in some way. But you're really trying to get all the things that are important for this person comes from them or is within them. So all you're doing is providing the mechanism to do that. The analogy I used for the performers when we were talking about this is the David Letterman show, because basically what David Letterman does is he provides a parody of a talk show. He uses the form of a talk show, and he can mock it and play around with it and have fun with it, but at the same time it's usually a really good talk show. So likewise, I wanted us to be able to play around with the form of an individual consultation, to be able to mock that maybe and poke fun at it, but at the same time, hopefully it would end up being a valuable consultation for the person involved.
I thought they would give me more of an idea of what I kind of wanted to do in life, or where I should be going in life, or stuff like that. And she definitely helped me, and she like picked out keywords that I said and kind of gave me advice on them.
Ultimately, I just kind of wanted to engage in some interesting dialogue with people and give them, as cheesy as it may sound, a little bit of hope to where they can feel like they can realistically get across the ocean. Straight to the source. It's interesting to think about how...
It was very interesting staying up all night. I do that on very rare occasion, and this certainly was a rare occasion. And I think with this piece, it really added to the mood or the aura.
Things that are normal can become uncommon and fascinating when they're happening at an abnormal time. And night allows us to see our environment in a different way. Then you know, your perceptions are different. You have to, one, rely on other senses because you don't have the same kind of resources of sight because things are dark. And it also enables artists to use light and projection in a way to illustrate things you might not normally notice.
A couple of things came up that were really unexpected. I had Melissa, and she was an absolutely amazing tour guide, an amazing, I guess, consultant for travel. And we had a great conversation about what travel was and where I was headed and where she kind of wanted to go a little bit. And we talked, and she said that I had a completely unique experience. She said that I was different than a lot of people, which was cool because, you know, everybody wants to be a little bit different.
When you're talking to someone one-to-one in a genuine conversation in the middle of the night, it takes on another dimension that somehow doesn't happen in the middle of the afternoon. So I would like to think that the all-night aspect of the piece really kind of added to the magic.
I've met some amazing people and some people that told me some amazing stories, and stories that I never would have thought of, like being hopped up on LSD and finding themselves in an Arkansas jail as an experience in life. A person who was traveling to Africa who was very, very frightened of travel and had never been out of the country and had decided that she was going to go to Africa because it was the most unpredictable place she could think of. So that was interesting.
I also had some people making Star Trek references when they were talking about types of travel they would want to do, which was also very interesting.
Were you the one that had the elfish language?
Yes, I was, and he said as long as he has to learn a language, that's what he has to learn, because it doesn't have to be something that he's ever going to use anyway.
Why are we asking people to stay up all night? Why are we asking artists to do this, durational thing in the middle of the night? And I think on some level you don't really understand it until you experience it, where in 2011, the first year of the festival, I zipped all around town visiting a lot of the projects and arrived back at the Stone Arch Bridge at dawn, having traveled the city back and forth between Minneapolis and St. Paul, and felt like I had been on this timeless journey, and that I was standing on the Stone Arch Bridge at dawn, and a accordion player was walking by playing a kind of a sad song, and it was an experience unlike anything I'd ever had.
You know, I say that it was interesting for me to hear these people, but I felt enlivened, I felt invigorating in hearing these people talk about what they have learned themselves.
To figure out, like, when you were going different places or you were within a city, did you sense that you came up with more an intuitive kind of way of like, well, that maybe is over here?
Yeah. It was more than fascinating. It was something that I felt like I got something from as well.
The actual performance was pretty close to what we had envisioned in terms of the operation of the whole thing, the interaction of the individual audience members with the performers. All of that went pretty much as planned. I guess if I was surprised by anything, it would have been that some of the audience members were really, really moved by it in a way beyond what I expected. It was really, for some people, it was a profound experience.
Just the entire concept was really, really well done, really, really cool to kind of use a different venue for self-exploration, because I feel, to me, what I pulled from the experience was self-exploration, but it was through a team of other people, which was interesting and different. It's not something that a lot of people get to do and a lot of people think about doing or can do. So having that opportunity to do that was just incredible.
The other thing, of course, that we were all surprised by was just the massive numbers of people who were coming through. We had been prepared and warned by the Northern Spark staff that, you know, thousands of people would be walking by, but we really weren't prepared for the number who were coming up and were genuinely interested in participating in our project. I really thought that we would have to be, you know, kind of hustling and begging people to come in and experience what we were all about, but it turned out to be just the opposite.
Right now we're actually pretty backed up, probably 20 minutes, but if you can talk, you might be able to, Roger can handle it.
Right now we've got about a 30-minute backup is the only thing, so we're asking if you can come back in those 30 minutes.
So we had to make some really quick adjustments, and like any really busy place, whether it's a fast food restaurant or a bar or whatever, we just had to do the best we could to keep up with the pace of business. We had to deal with some impatient, unruly customers and not get freaked out, not get frazzled to the point that we couldn't do it, but just dig in and do the very best we could.
So there's definitely the weird kind of all corporate, you know, oh, sorry about that, you know, we'll do our best, and, you know, the customer service aspect, which comes with a lot of jobs, I think, a lot of face-to-face things like that.
And for the most part, I think we succeeded. We had an incredible group of people, and there was just a real good sort of can-do spirit, and we're all going to work together to make this happen, to make it a success, and that definitely helped us get around those problems.
Obviously, if they signed up for it and filled out the questionnaire, they wanted to do it, but everybody wanted to really talk.
Traveling by yourself or traveling with friends?
Friends, if they could go with me, but I mean, I'd be...
And I would say probably half, if not more, really didn't have anything beyond the traveling experience of seeing places that might be cool. But the people that did and that really talked about what they got from their experiences in their either inner life or just what they might have learned, that was really fascinating. And yeah, I would do that again.
Just hearing people's honest stories was really rewarding and really eye-opening as well. To hear people with completely different experiences from my own share their life stories centered around the theme of travel was really wonderful.
Yeah, I would absolutely do this. It's really actually made me want to do more interactive performance art. I really enjoy meeting with other people. I would definitely do this again.
If some project like this happened somewhere else that I could be involved, being an agent, yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to do it.
When, at the end of the conversation, when I say, well, so-and-so, I hope our discussion has given you a little bit of hope or encouragement in terms of where you want to go. You know, I hope this has been beneficial to you. When they like look me in the eye and shake my hand and say, yeah, you know, I'm really glad we did this. And when I know they're sincere, that's when it's like, yes, you know, mission accomplished.
The person I talked to was extremely open, great listener, somebody I could easily talk to. Didn't feel like whatever I would say, however crazy and weird it might sound, they weren't going to judge me about it or think I was strange or whatever it might be. So I enjoyed it a lot, and it was a nice, intimate conversation with a person I hardly knew. So.
It gives people an opportunity to experience a space here in a different way and create this kind of like head-scratching shift. Like, wait a second, is the Amtrak ticket office open? No, those people are wearing what does that logo mean? You know, it's almost normal, but then it's not normal. And when it's 4 o'clock in the morning, it's really not normal. And that's just thrilling.
Just being part of such a huge, crazy, wonderful event. It just seemed like thousands of people gathered together to celebrate art in all of its crazy forms and manifestations. So sort of the synergy or the collective energy that came out of that was just amazing. It was like going to a rock concert or a NFL football game or something like that. It was just the crowd really, in many ways, made the event.
I wish that I could travel